Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm pleased to welcome you here to our October 25th, 2017 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. I see a lot of faces here tonight, and it's great to have you all here, but if you couldn't make it here tonight, you'll have the opportunity to participate as well. And before we get started, I want everybody to know that a copy of the agenda and all of the supporting material for tonight's meeting, if you're here in the room, is on the back table at the back of this room. But if you're watching us streaming on either our YouTube channel or on Cable Access 12, you can follow along with all of the same material on the town's webpage, www.townofbrighton.org. The agenda, and again, all of the supporting material that we're going to be reviewing is on that webpage, so you can follow along. We'll be starting in just a minute with our open forum, but first I do want to start with our pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask Councilmember Novros to lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple quick housekeeping announcements first. In case of an emergency, you will hear the emergency alarm system. If you hear the alarm go off, please leave this room and the building immediately, either through the door to my right, marked with the exit sign. If you go out that door, turn right, go down the stairs, out the rear entrance to Town Hall, and move away from the building. Or either of the two double doors in the back of this room. Go out either one of those doors, through the lobby, through the main front doors of Town Hall, down the steps, and away from the building. If you're watching us on our cable access channel, if you're watching the live broadcast and you experience any technical difficulties with the video or the audio on the broadcast, please call Spectrum. Spectrum is at 756-5000, and let them know if you're watching the live broadcast tonight. We will be starting with our open forum. As I mentioned, the open forum is an opportunity for members of the public, whether or not you live in Brighton, to participate in the meeting, share your thoughts, ideas, questions, or comments on any matter, whether or not it is on tonight's agenda. Now, if you're here for one of our public hearings, and we do have 3 public hearings tonight, 2 of them relate to the budget, and 1 of them relates to a new local law that would facilitate the town benchmarking energy consumption in our buildings. If you are here to comment on any of those and would like your comments to be part of the record, I would encourage you to wait until those public hearings are called. But if you would like to participate in the open forum, just raise your hand, I'll recognize you. Please come to the podium here. If you would, please give your name and address. Please direct your comments to the town board and not to other members of the audience. Please be courteous. Of course, try to keep your comments as concise as possible, although we don't time you. And we would ask that you not comment about any matters relating to town personnel or employees here in public. So is there anyone that would like to address the town board during our open forum? I want to welcome, we have a number of students here from Brighton High School, students in the Law and Government class. I had the opportunity to speak there just yesterday and met some of the students that are here tonight, and that's always a great opportunity. You really see what great students we have and just how engaged they are in the classroom. I enjoyed that session very much, as I always do when I'm over at the school. So thanks for yesterday, and thanks for coming out again tonight. But again, is there anyone that would like to address the board during the open forum? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on that? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Aye. Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And a motion to approve and file the town board meeting minutes for our October 11th, 2017 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. We will now begin our public hearings. As I mentioned last meeting, we had the first of two public hearings on the town budget, on the town's operating and capital improvement budget. We will have the second one tonight. State law requires one public hearing, but we believe it's important to give the public a couple of opportunities to come out. But for those of you that have been following the budget process, it's a process that starts in the spring. It's one that involves a number of very public opportunities for the public to engage in our process, whether through the budget workshops that we held back in August, a series of meetings of our Finance and Administrative Services Committee meeting that meets, again, in open session to consider the budget, and of course at our budget hearing 2 weeks ago. I would also note there are two public hearings that really do relate to the budget. The second public hearing, which we'll be calling next, is concerning assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvement, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts. That's a mouthful, but it relates to, special charges for things like sidewalks and sewers and snow removal on sidewalks and the like. We never get too hung up on whether a comment should be in the hearing on the budget or on the assessment rolls, because they are so interrelated. So don't worry if you want to comment on the budget, whether you're speaking at the right time or whether your comments really relate to both of them. We will take them into account just as we took, into account any previous comments. So with that, we did ascertain at the last meeting that notice had been given for these budget public hearings. So I now declare the meeting on the public hearing rather, on the 2018 operating and capital improvement budget to be open. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on the budget during this public hearing? Robin, come on up.
Good evening, I'm Robin Wilt. I live at 2695 East Avenue. I want to signal my overall support and confidence in the supervisor's 2018 preliminary operating and capital budgets. As has already been mentioned in the message prefacing the proposed budgets, despite risk factors such as a slow-growing or even potentially shrinking tax base, our town leadership's fiscal stewardship has resulted in Brighton receiving strong scores in our state's Office of the Comptroller's Fiscal Stress Monitoring System, as well as a Moody's bond rating of AA2, one of the highest ratings in the state. In particular, the town departments and citizen review committees are to be commended for their thoughtful work toward presenting budget proposals that reflect our town's priorities with regard to sustainability. As we look toward the future in developing a winter farmers market, upgrading our town hall's HVAC system, and maintaining our refuse and lighting districts, I hope that we continue to not only acknowledge the need for environmentally sustainable solutions, but also move assertively toward incorporating even more sustainable practices and technologies into the town's infrastructure. In visiting neighborhoods throughout Brighton over the past few months, I've had the opportunity and pleasure of interacting with our residents and learning more about what's top of mind for the community on a day-to-day basis. Taxes, fiscal oversight, and affordability as it relates to the services provided by the town in exchange for the revenue it receives is a frequent topic of discussion, as you can probably guess. I believe that everyone who sits in a position of leadership within the town of Brighton is sensitive to the balancing act of providing the highest level of value in exchange for the tax dollars collected, while recognizing that people are acutely feeling the burden of the expense to provide the town with the exceptional amenities that we enjoy as residents. In light of this balancing act, I'm encouraged to see increased emphasis on county-wide shared services, and I look forward to being part of the efforts to aggregate public costs across jurisdictions wherever feasible, in order to realize increased savings for the residents of Brighton. In closing, I want to express how grateful I am for this truly open budget process, wherein public comments are not only welcomed, but encouraged. And I thank the Town Council, Supervisor, and Clerk for their continued exemplary fiscal management. And I have copies of.
Thank you, Rob. Had an interesting, apropos to your comments about shared services. Had a meeting earlier this week with a couple of, two people from the state, including someone from the State Department of Transportation, not from Monroe County. And he was surprised to learn that among the very important shared services programs that we have here in Monroe County that the town of Brighton participates in are the fact that our town trucks, Brighton town trucks, plow our state highways and our county highways under shared services agreement with the state and with the county. It sounds obvious. Our highway barn is on a county highway. It wouldn't make any sense not to plow Elmwood Avenue. But in some communities, in some parts of the state, that's exactly what happened. And this representative from the DOT wasn't aware that that's something we do as a matter of course here in Monroe County and have done for many years. Tim Keefe, our highway superintendent, that's an important part of the job that you and your crews do. And it's really just one example of what we do, whether at, with higher levels of government, the state or the county, or with sort of our peers, shared service arrangements we have with the city, with the town of Pittsford, among others. So again, thank you for those comments, Robin, and also specifically as they relate to sustainability, which is very much a priority. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on the budget from the audience? Are there any comments or questions from members of the town board?
I'd like to know why it's now being called the 2018 assessment rules, preliminary supervisors 2018 preliminary operating and capital improvement when we had the town of Brighton's 2000.
Well, it is the supervisor that presents the budget, but when it is approved by the town board with any amendments that are made, it is the town of Brighton budget.
Bill, I don't know if you've mentioned it before, you usually do, but let me reiterate that I'm so pleased as a member of the town and as a citizen of the town and of the town board that this budget is sent out well ahead of the election.
Yeah.
This is the opportunity for people to weigh in on how well they think their town government is working and take action on it if they think that it's not working well. And we work very hard to get this budget out well ahead of election time so that citizens can do a conscientious and thorough review of our performance.
It is a good point, Chris. Under state law, we're not officially required to even release a budget. The county doesn't release its budget until after election day. But I think it is important in the interest of transparency. I talked about the various steps that the public has had to be a part of the budget, and I really do. I think transparency in government goes a long way towards effectiveness in government. Any other questions or comments from the board or from members of the audience? Hearing none, then I declare this public hearing to be closed. I would note you have a resolution in your packet. It does include communication that lists some amendments to the budget, and those amendments are set out in that communication. What I would ask for then, Ken, should we have an initial motion to approve the budget and then a second motion on amendments, or one simple?
No, I think it would be adequate if we acted on the resolution as drafted. The resolution as drafted incorporates the October 23rd memorandum.
Great, then I'm sorry.
Then I have a question about the landscaping
Sure.
increase. Is that for one,
I would note, go ahead, yeah.
you would note what?
I was just going to say that the public, I just want the public hearing portion of the discussion is closed, but that's okay.
But we can still have a town board discussion.
Absolutely.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Is that for one park, or is that for landscaping for all the town properties?
As you know, we've had some meetings, particularly with residents in your neighborhood, in the Roselawn neighborhood, about the town hall campus and specifically the garden towards the Roselawn neighborhood. That additional $7,500 is anticipated to be a portion of the cost of making yet to be determined changes and improvements to that garden. I think that'll be a process. You know, I know we want to get input from the neighborhood on that, but we know that there will need to be financial support for that. I've had the opportunity to meet with Tim, meet with Gary, our facilities coordinator, and they both believe that we are in a position to do the work, the ongoing work, both here on the town hall campus as well as down the street in the 12 Corners Park, which also has garden areas that need continued maintenance with our existing budget levels. There were some issues this year, starting with the windstorm, continuing with some extraordinary efforts that needed to be made by the highway department on the Monroe Avenue project, as well as some personnel matters, that frankly we dropped the ball a little bit in this year on some of that work. And all of us here at the town board desk have to take some responsibility for that. But I do believe that the funding is in place for that ongoing work. But so this $7,500 is really targeted towards some
Where is
future
it
work.
coming
over
from? Where are you taking it from?
It's new funding.
New funding.
If I could give
and-
a slightly different answer only in terms of its emphasis. So the money, the additional funds are going into a fund for landscaping, which can be used for any park and any of the town, any portion of the town. And these funds, although obviously the intent is for this particular project, they are not specially earmarked for any particular park.
And I would note that a better answer to your last question, where are they coming from, Louise, is we, as you'll see in the memorandum from myself and from the finance director and from our budget officer, there are additional revenues from the amenity agreement with the University of Rochester with respect to the Highlands at Brighton nursing home facility. So that will be the source of those revenues.
Is there going to be a line item from now on to cover all our parks?
Those are decisions that we'll make in future budgets. We budget each year based on the needs for the coming year.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Then can I have a motion? And that was why I made the point, Louise, because technically from a Roberts Rules perspective, you have the motion and then the discussion, but we try to be flexible on that. Can I have a motion then to approve the resolution you have in your packet concerning the operating and capital improvement budget?
Jason?
Yes, with respect to the supervisor's 2018 preliminary operating and capital improvement budgets, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Now, any further discussion on that matter? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. We'll now have the public hearing on the, get through this all again, the 2018 assessment rules for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts. Again, this is the second public hearing on the matter. Dan, the necessary legal notice has been given, as you indicated at the last meeting. And I declare this public hearing now to be open. Any comments from members of the audience concerning the assessment rolls? Any comments from members of the town board? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed. And Jason, I'll ask you again
Okay.
for a motion.
With respect to the 2018 assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion from the board?
On the property cleanup charges, I thought you said that the county wasn't going to help us with that anymore, so this is why we have to put it in our budget?
The county, we always put those in our budget. They are revenues that we anticipate generating. But you're right, the county has taken the position that they will no longer guarantee and re-levy charges for property maintenance. As I've discussed before, I think, that is bad policy because, as we all know, vacant properties, so-called zombie homes, are a concern in every part of this county, in the city, in Brighton, in Greece, in Gates, and throughout. And this decision actually flies in the face of what Robin mentioned earlier in her budget comments. The guarantee and re-levy and collection by the county of these charges has been a shared service. What they have said to all of us, towns and villages and the city of Rochester, is you're on your own now. We won't facilitate the collection of those charges. You've got to collect them yourself. That's bad policy. It's bad substance. So, but you're right. So if, to the extent that people do not pay these charges, and we include them as anticipated revenues, just as we would, other charges, tax revenues and district charges and the like, but we no longer have the automatic re-levy from the county on those. So, but they are, appropriate to be included in the budget.
But during the year, they'll go up if they still don't do anything with their properties.
Interest will be charged.
I mean, you have to keep mowing and you have to keep
Well,
doing
we
whatever
won't-
you do.
This is a yearly thing. So these are for work that was done during the course of this year. And each year, there are a few properties that require that. Each year, they get charged back, and we seek to collect them.
And the action being approved here is simply to include these charges on the tax bills and as part of the tax levy, which we would do regardless of what the county is doing. I'd agree with everything the supervisor said about the county, I'll call it unlawful policy that they've adopted. But I will tell you that we need to take this step so that we can charge those properties as the town of Brighton, and that's really the only action that you're taking at this point.
And we are in litigation with the county over this, and we fully expect, as Ken used the word unlawful, we believe that the county's action is unlawful. The town of Arundecoit and the town of Brighton have sued the county of Monroe, and we do expect that having levied these charges, that we will ultimately, the courts will rule that the county must continue to guarantee and re-levy those charges. But this is a, process step in getting to that point, or if we're not upheld by the court, in collecting them ourselves directly.
Right, and this is simply going to, hopefully result in the taxpayer paying these charges on their property, and it'll never get to the point of the county having to reimburse.
Which is what typically happens with most of these charges, because if they're not, they become liens against the property, clouding clear title to the property. Any other questions? Then we have a motion and a second to approve the assessment rolls. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Finally, the last public hearing tonight is on a proposed local law known as Energy Benchmarking for Municipal Buildings, Local Law of 2017. Dan, has the necessary legal notice been given on this matter?
He asked as soon as I changed screens. Yes, the notice was published in the October 19th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you. Then I declare this public hearing to be open. And Ken or Tim, would either one of you like to address the intent of this local law, or even both of you?
I'd be happy to, Supervisor. As you know, the town has undertaken some initiatives relative to becoming a greener community. This is another step in that regard. One of the things that we want to be able to do is reduce our carbon footprint. And to do that, we will be engaging and embarking on monitoring the energy usage of our public buildings. And with that energy, we may be able to identify ways and means as to how to reduce our energy consumption on non-renewable sources and become a more sustainable community.
And adopting this law will also help us get to a point where we will be eligible for certain grants from the state, which will also help us in becoming a more sustainable community. Ken, anything you want to say in addition to that? Then I declare this public hearing to be open, and I invite members of the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on the public hearing for the energy benchmarking for municipal buildings local law? Hearing none, would anybody on the town board like to comment for the record on this matter? You will have the opportunity after there's a motion and a second to comment as well.
But how do you keep this from being like Big Brother?
Well,
I mean-
we're benchmarking our own buildings.
I know, but you're also going in and saying which department or which building is using too much energy and
That's
so
part of
forth and so
management.
on.
That's part of making sure our operations are sustainable and efficient. And I certainly think it's an important thing to do.
Bill,
We're
this
not
is a-
going to be intrusive on anybody's personal information, but we will be benchmarking historic data and comparing that to future data going forward.
Will you have a level that you want it to be at?
We understand, every operation is
That's right.
different. And, we have buildings like, storage buildings out on Buckland Park that, as a general rule, use very little energy. We have buildings like this one that are open, not necessarily 24/7, but have activities going on throughout the day, some of which are pretty heavy draws on the electrical system. But what we do want to do for each of those buildings, for each of those activities, is to identify where problem areas might be, to be able to measure savings that things like installing LED lights will provide, and to frankly gauge our own success in operating as efficiently as we can. And I think that's an important part of being a role model for a community. I know all the board members have heard me talk about core values in Brighton. Sustainability is one of those 3 core values. And if we're going to call on our residents, if we're going to call on our business owners to conduct their homes, their businesses in as sustainable a manner as possible, we have to look at ourselves and do the same.
Well, when I read energy performance score shall mean the numeric rating generated by a portfolio manager. So somebody,
No, the portfolio manager is a defined term in the law.
It's an automated program.
Software.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is the commissioner or whoever the commissioner designates is going to report. This is for only municipal buildings of 1,000 square feet or greater. And those energy uses, energy consumption, actual energy consumption will be inputted into a computer, into the software. Different buildings will have different classifications so that you will be not comparing dissimilar buildings. You're supposed to compare buildings of a similar character and see how they score compared to other similar buildings. That is a building of a certain character using energy at a greater rate or at a lesser rate? Is it more efficient? Is it less efficient? And it gives us, as the supervisor said, an opportunity to know where it is that we might be able to improve our energy consumption practices and save some money for the community, short-term and long-term. And we share that publicly. That's the other thing, is this is also a good part of open government by sharing all of that benchmarking information publicly with the community, so it's publicly available. And the public and our sustainability task force will be able to comment on it and provide suggestions to the town board on how things can be done more efficiently and more economically, both, in the future. So that's sort of how the process works. It's not like there's a person who's going to be, making that judgment independently. The energy score is really a nationwide product, software product, I think by the U.S. Department of Energy, or I forget offhand who actually publishes it. But it's
the EPA.
EPA, yeah, right. Environmental Protection Agency publishes it. Yeah.
And at least for now, the EPA still exists.
It does.
so what happens if it's determined that a building or a department is using too much?
Yeah, so that's what's interesting. It's a good question. There is no real action that is mandated by this law. This is just a monitoring process. So I would say it would be up to the town board who receives this information to decide what they want to do with the information. If they find out that a building is inefficient, whether the town board, given all of the other budget constraints that the town is under, wants to and has the ability to take some action to put in LED lightings or whatever the case may be.
It may give us reason to say, why is it that, for example, our heating bills are too expensive? And look at our windows, look at our insulation, look at other ways that we may be spending too much money heating or cooling in the summertime our buildings. It really is, it's a data gathering tool, but data Data is power. Data gives us the ability to make smart decisions, and as Ken said, not, we would hope, just sustainability for sustainability's sake, which is important, but also for efficiency's sake, for reducing costs. If we can, just as we change our lights in our home to, away from old-fashioned lights to more efficient lights that, that consume less energy and generally are longer lasting, we save money at home. Simple changes like that can help us save money here, and programs like this help us to identify how we can do it.
It says here the effective date would be as soon as it's filed.
Correct.
Do we have the program or the,
The
The first reporting, actually, this was something that was changed. When I originally drafted it, I drafted it so it would go into effect like within 30 days or something. And the commissioner and his staff said, Mr. Gordon, I think you're a little bit overly zealous here, and let's back this off to give us an opportunity to gather the data. So actually, the first reporting date will be March 31st of 2018, when that data needs to be put in. So
For the preceding
good point. I
calendar
mean, we
year.
need to have time to accumulate this data so we can put it in and have something meaningful to report.
where is the reporting data going to be located? I mean, is it going to be
We're
on
gonna
our
use
computers, or is it going to be?
we will use this software. We will enter into it data that is generated, by various means, utility bills, and
So it's going to be going into our IT people?
it's going to be, we're going to be using this software just like anybody would use a software package of various kinds, which will enable us to compare, as Ken said it earlier, not only our performance over time, but our performance as against similar sorts of properties.
The work itself of actually putting the data in will be performed in the commissioner's office, staff, in the Department of Public Works or the Highway Department. I don't know who you're planning on having to do
Department
it,
of
but
Public Works.
Department of Public Works.
And Bill, this is something to be embraced, not resisted.
Absolutely.
This is.
Appreciate the question,
This is
but-
a continuation of, first, the energy audit, which was undertaken by the Sustainability Oversight Committee, which I was charged to serve as liaison, and those folks have worked extremely hard. They've brought in an intern to first do an energy audit, and that energy audit was very comprehensive and a lot of hard work by the intern. Now, from that point, now we know historically what we've used, but now on a daily basis, the same way that if I've got a leaky toilet, I want to know it so I can attend to it. And if we've got...
If you don't look at your water bill, you might not know it.
Well, and now the county will actually, on their drive-bys, can tell me that I've got some unusual consumption. The same way here, this is data that's always been here in our departments. We get our energy bills, but now the idea is, well, let's just take a look at that information and sort through it and put it into a usable form that we can use it to budget. And when we're going over our budget of energy consumption in a particular department or a particular building, we can do something about it. So it's all about, as you said, data is power. And this is exactly what this is intended to do. This is nowhere near meant to be a big brother. Maybe it's more like my wife watching my use of the checkbook.
Or maybe you watching your use of the checkbook.
Maybe
Yeah,
even better,
yeah.
yes.
But it really does. It allows us to compare our own performance over time. It also allows us to see how we're doing in different sorts of operations as compared to other, municipal entities and how they manage their operations. I hope that answers all of your questions, because I really do. I think this is a very positive step. Obviously, the state thinks it's a very positive step because it is one of their targeted action items in order to qualify us for grants going forward.
Actually, speaking of the grant money, because we did talk about it during the CIP process, the grant money would be available in order to implement some sustainability type
Correct.
projects for
But
further
we
energy savings.
have to get to the four
This is one of the things that
This is
will
the
get us there.
third of four. We have submitted a staff training request that would be the fourth requirement. And once that timing of that is able to be set for our staff person, that will put us in a position to be qualified to apply for one of these grants. And it is first come, first served. So we want to move down that road just as quickly as possible. This passes, we get her scheduled in for her training date, when we're waiting to hear back on that. That will give us our fourth, and we'll apply for grant money. Any further questions on this local law? Hearing none, Dan, I'm sorry, do we have a motion and a second on this?
You have not
I've
yet
not
closed-
closed the public hearing, have I? Anything further, either from the audience or from the board? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed. Can I have a motion on this proposed local law?
Bill, with respect to the
Chris.
energy benchmarking for municipal buildings, local law of 2017, I move that we adopt this and approve the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town before us.
Second.
Any further discussion from the town board? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Bids, Jason?
Yes, with respect to seeking approval to solicit for proposals to provide professional services to update and prepare cultural resources surveys for purposes of landmark designations, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Again, this is just soliciting proposals, but it will enable us to, for the Historic Preservation Commission, to get information on properties so that they can consider them for designation as a town landmark. This is something we do on a regular basis. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Communications, can I have a motion to receive and file these communications?
So moved.
Second.
Chief, we always hate to see these. That first communication, Sergeant Fisher, has served us well, but
Yes.
he will be retiring.
He'll be retiring in December. He's put in his notice that effective December 4th, he'll retire from the police department. Bob's a first-line supervisor. He's involved in our firearms training, and he's going to be hard to replace.
And
20 years.
He'll have 20 years, just over 20 as a police officer.
Well, we appreciate all the work he's done, and we hope he doesn't go too far.
We just adopted the budget. We'll have a discussion.
And Mark, do you know Sergeant Fisher's family history in the police department? When I was a young man, there was a Robert Fisher with the county sheriff's department.
He actually transferred from another county.
Okay, and
I don't believe
he
he
had a
has.
son, Robert Fisher, as well.
I don't believe he has roots. I don't believe his dad was in law enforcement. He transferred. into-
Similar name, thanks.
We also have correspondence from the chair of the commissioners of the fire district relating to the fire district tax levy for their 2018 budget. We just have the communication here in the package along with a summary of information relating to the budget for the fire district in the town of Pittsford and in the town of Brighton. The Brighton Fire District does include a portion of the town of Pittsford. Again, that's something we receive each year from the fire district. We also have a couple of items of communication, I think apropos to an earlier conversation. One is correspondence from the State Department of Financial Services relating to some upcoming educational programs relating to vacant properties. They held one in the southern tier, one in the Syracuse area, and there will be one in Rochester at the REO Center downtown Friday morning. And then finally, communication from the Department of State Director of Local Government Services relating to the governor's Shared Services Initiative. Again, those of you that have been following along, the County of Monroe submitted a shared services plan as was required under the governor's budget this year, and that included a listing not only of existing shared service programs, but also some planned shared service or proposed shared service opportunities that one or more of the jurisdictions here in Monroe County would like to participate in. And there are certainly some opportunities there that, if they get off the ground, would be interesting and appropriate for the town of Brighton. Again, some sort of peer-to-peer. The town of Pittsford and I, Supervisor Smith and I, have had some discussions relating to our PVC pipe, which has been a nagging issue for us, storage of that pipe, to broader sort of back office administrative issues. So more to come on that. But we have a motion and a second to receive and file those communications. Any further comments? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll to receive and file those communications.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Committee reports, Community Services Committee. Chris?
Excuse me. The Community Services Committee met on last Wednesday, October 18. We had quite a lengthy meeting. Matt Beeman talked about various park issues. One in particular was that he's actively looking to replace trees as they've been lost in the parks, and looking to see if there might be some more economical sources, such as some of the home centers and so forth, as they end their seasons. And also other sources for funding for tree replacement, but it's an active program that Matt is undertaking. Also, Matt reported on the irony of 3 broken slides within our town park equipment. It just so happens that 3 of our plastic slides had broken, and just the frustration in trying to replace individual components and the expense of them in our programs. But he's really working actively to try to get those slides replaced.
And Chris, that's been a matter of a little bit of discussion on social media. So I do want to sort of expand a little bit on that, because as Matt did advise us, that Buckland slide that, someone did, correctly observe that there's a split right down the
crack in the middle of it.
The seam of it. There was an effort made to replace it. To repair it, to reseal that, and unfortunately, it didn't hold. Because these are fairly old playground systems, and they're systems that can only be, replaced by the same vendor. So we are, as you said, Matt is working on replacing that to a certain extent. He had to make sure, so much of what we do is budget driven, he had to make sure he had enough money in his budget, or if necessary, make any necessary budget transfers. But he's working on getting those replaced, and they will be, either repaired or replaced with, whether a slide, the different parks have different facilities, and they may or may not be able to take the slide.
There are
They may
3
not.
different parks, and they're
Yeah.
components of 3 different playground systems.
Yep.
And just the frustration he's been having in doing what would seem to be a simple process. You got a broken slide, you just order one up and you put it back on. It's not that simple.
No, it isn't.
So he's trying to move as quickly as he can, and then he assures the public that we're very much aware of it. We're waiting on the Corbett's Glen Committee report and recommendations, but there was some discussion about some repairs necessary to the area where Glen Road ends and the Wood Bridge begins, and trying to determine exactly whose jurisdiction that is, and it may be CSX's, the railroad company's area portion of that roadway. The recreation programs, we had a great weekend last weekend, but we've got our upcoming Halloween haunted house at the Buckland Farmhouse this weekend on the 27th, Friday, from 6 to 9, but also we have the Happy Halloween House just before that for younger folks or other folks that aren't quite so tolerant of the lights and the spookiness, and it's a Happy Halloween House.
That
Surprisingly,
starts at 5.
that starts at 5 to 6 p.m. Spooky, but not so scary, says Becky. But the big event for our committee was the presentation by Sue Gardner-Smith of a report that I had asked her to make on the farmers market, which is one of our great community assets here on Sundays for the summer farm market, and also the ongoing winter farm market as well. We're coming up on the 10th anniversary of that farmers market in 2018, and it's been another great year. It's thriving. It's considered to be the premier suburban, certainly, farmers market in the area, and it's very popular with our vendors. We have some 50 vendors, and we started at 25 some years ago. All sorts of programs that are being presented there: weekly music, Good Grub Club, the Food Cupboard, Brighton. Color Brighton Green, and it's just a great community gathering and a great place to present different programs to the kids in the community, and just to meet each other in the neighborhood. And there's also quite a bit of discussion as well about the upcoming Winters Farmers Market and our project there in the Buckland Park, that we're starting construction hopefully soon on the Winters Farmers Market, and then ultimately the use perhaps of that as our location for our year-round farmers market, and whether that makes sense, how that will impact the success of the program. We do not want to mess with something that's working quite as well as this particular program is. So we're beginning of discussions about how we can best serve the needs of the farmers market. The rent source inquiry law is still under consideration, and I understand that's under discussion between the supervisor and the town attorney. Town beautification continues to be a very active issue. Dee Burdette came again, and Dee's been very instrumental in really moving our beautification of many of our parks along through her own personal efforts, and then some other friends of hers and other community groups, and has also coordinated with the town departments that have, I think, made a significant difference in the 12 Corners, in the Rose Garden here, and I'm very pleased to see an additional, perhaps, money in the budget for the Rose Garden in the future. We also had a meeting earlier, before the 18th, a week prior, regarding the Rose Garden, met with the Roselawn neighbors, who originally is the origin of that park, and talked about what's the best approach for enhancing that park, and perhaps making it lower maintenance, and continuing to develop it in a way that's sustainable over there. And there's some suggestion that perhaps we'll have some time this winter, if we don't have too much snow, that maybe some of our troops can get out there and do at least an initial, let's say, cleanup of the perimeter, bring it down to a more manageable size. But we're going to have ongoing discussions with the Neighborhood Association, who's very interested in how we proceed with that. Discussed also the potential for the Chamber of Commerce, perhaps to help us out with refuse containers and benches, and that's still under study.
Or something else.
Or something different. And also, I was very pleased to see Asher Flum, who is active with the Brighton Boys Lacrosse program. This is yet another generation in town here that we're seeing come back and now become active with his interaction with town programs, or with community programs. This is a private program. And he has suggested that what would enhance Buckland Park and the use by the lacrosse program there would be a wall against which the boys lacrosse teams, et cetera, could practice their skills, also be used by soccer. I've spent many hours with a wall and a soccer ball, but also tennis players use it regularly as well. So
Depending on whether it's on a paved surface.
Depending whether we have paved or grass in front of it. But I was pleased to have Asher come out. He's really working hard with a really a superior program. Our lacrosse program is really important to our town, of recreational sports. And he had emailed and said, how do I start the process about looking at this? And I said, the first spot is to come to a community service meeting and make a presentation. And we'll take it from there and try to consider it as best we can and integrate it into our budget if we think it makes sense and coordinates with the other improvements there in those parks.
Potentially with some support as well from that organization or others.
Excellent, Bill. That's a great idea. And he did say that their program could participate as well. It's quite a large program there with the boys lacrosse. So our next meeting is November 15th, always an active committee. I really enjoy when community members come out to present issues to us and to participate with us. So November 15th, 9:30 at Brookside.
Thanks, Chris. Jason, Finance?
Yes, Finance met last week on Tuesday, October 17th. Each of the items that were reviewed at the Finance Committee meeting appear on tonight's agenda, except there was a discussion regarding a budget transfer budget transfer from the 2017 highway road repair budget to the highway machinery budget for vehicle parts and repairs for the remainder of 2017. However, after further review by the Highway Department, it was determined the matter wasn't necessary, did not require town board action, so that is not on tonight's agenda. Our next meeting will be on next Tuesday, October 31st. We meet at 3:30 in the afternoon in the Stage Conference Room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. Public Safety, Louise?
Public Safety has not met since the last town board meeting, and the next meeting will be November 14th at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Thanks.
I wanted to, well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to report on the recycling of that.
Okay. Well,
Okay, this last weekend, we had our electronics and the shredding, and again, it was very successful. We had 430 cars and 1 walker, and we collected electronics. We collected 7,549 pounds, bringing a total to date of 233,906 pounds, or 117 tons. And the shredding, we collected 9,780 pounds for a total to date of 179,426 pounds of paper, which is 89.25 tons. And we've also collected 224 pounds of food for the food cupboard from these events. Next weekend is the pharmaceutical take-back from 10 to 2 right here at the Public Safety Wing, and everybody's invited to.
That's this Saturday.
This
coming
Saturday.
Saturday, the 28th, 10 to 2 on right here on the Town Hall campus. That's it. Thank you, Louise. Public Works, Jim?
Public Works will be meeting on Tuesday, November 7th. That's Election Day. And because the upper and lower level rooms will be in need of that for the voting, we're going to have our meeting in the Stage Conference Room. But it will be, as usual, at 9 a.m. And the public is invited, as always.
Great.
Excuse me, Council, I don't know where that keeps coming from. I've heard that twice. I didn't realize. There's downstairs is not
Downstairs
used.
is not used anymore. It used to be used, but
Yeah, I'm not sure where that started.
All the polling
I thought I had
places.
squashed that, but
but
apparently
we're
not.
fine being in the
Yeah,
stage.
it's
I mean,
fine.
the stage is a good
Okay.
place to meet, I think. I'm sorry, Jim.
That was it.
That's it? Okay, good. We have no old business, new business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier this evening, I reviewed claims totaling $493,906.41. Notable claims include to Espana Enterprises in the amount of $2,993.79, representing the final payment for our 2016 sidewalk repair program. Also to Exxon Enterprises in the amount of $31,824, which was for our second year of the body camera purchase and digital storage of the footage. And also to MVP Healthcare in the amount of $244,522.94, representing the health insurance premiums for active employees and retirees under 65 for the month of November. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Next item is to seek approval to accept donations from various corporate and community sponsors totaling some $58,000 in support of the 2017, this past year's 4th of July celebration. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town before us.
Second.
Discussion? I do want to thank, or maybe Chris, if you want to thank each of them, go right
Pleased
ahead.
to say that Wegmans, Five Star Improvements, Harvey Nussbaum, Cornerstone Kitchens, Paris Kerwin, Canandaigua National Bank, Seeger and Shortino Law Firm all participated in those donations, and they're very much appreciated.
Absolutely. It was great festivities on the 4th, as always. We have a motion and a second. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks approval, to authorize approval of the proposed 2018 Town Board meeting dates for the year 2018. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
I would note that this schedule does include the entire year, with the exception that the date and time of the second December meeting will be determined at a later date. That is the meeting that normally falls between Christmas and New Year's, and we have traditionally held that meeting not at night because it's just such a tough time of year, but at noon on one day during that week, and we will set that time and schedule that date accordingly. And I would also note that the organizational meeting for 2018, which is the meeting at which various actions of the board that are required to be taken either every year or every other year, will be held on January 2nd, 2018 at noon. That's a Tuesday noon. So we have a motion and a second to approve those dates. Any discussion, any comment on any of those? Hearing none. And again, those are all at 7 o'clock with the exception of the dates that I mentioned. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason again?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize approval of the proposed 2018 Town of Brighton holiday schedule for the year 2018. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion on any of those? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
Next matter is to authorize the supervisor to execute a renewal agreement with PenFlex, Inc. for third-party and administrative services for the West Brighton Fire Protection District Service Awards Program. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion?
Why are we still paying that?
We're not paying any service awards, but pending the resolution of all matters relating to the West Brighton Fire District and a referendum that must be held to dissolve the service award plan. PenFlex continues to administer that program. We monitor the performance of the funds, but that
Are we paying PenFlex?
we are paying PenFlex, yes.
So,
Yep.
and still no resolution.
We can discuss that in an executive session if you'd like, but I'm not going to talk about matters of litigation here. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim?
Yes, the next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Toshiba Business Solutions for the purchase of various electronic copiers. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Dan, if you could talk about this, because you've really spearheaded this project.
Yeah, our last equipment came up at the end of original contract. So we're replacing the existing machines, as well as adding one additional, actually in my office, for a maximization of usefulness staff-wise. I want to make sure we get everybody working as efficiently as we can. So this is just new machines replacing the ones we have. Looked at different options once again from different manufacturers and companies around town. The Toshiba pricing that we have is through the East Suffolk BOCES contract once again. So under our procurement policy, we don't have to go back out to quote and bid on that, but I did anyway, just to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck for our residents. And again, with the performance of the machines and the service provided by Toshiba, no reason to change course.
Thank you. Any further comments? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
I'm sorry, Louise, did you have a question before we
Not about
call the
this.
roll?
Separate. Councilmember Vogel?
Or it's not Xerox, but hi.
Agreed. Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute a revised agreement with Relcom, Inc. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This revised agreement will reduce the cost of the contract by eliminating, our new IT director has reviewed some of the terms of that, and we've made a recommendation, the Finance Committee has made a recommendation that we eliminate what is sort of effectively an equipment guarantee and warranty based on past history and usage of that. We've determined that this, based on our maintenance and replacement history of these phone sets, we should be able to save money without that program. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye.
Bill, what I was asking him was, is it possible to change a vote?
Yes,
It is possible, well,
it is.
it is,
You would have to recall the matter. If you're in the majority of the board members who voted, and so far everything's been unanimous, you can
Oh,
recall.
I'm sure I'm the only one that would change it in that one.
No, but you can, if you're in the majority, you can recall the matter and indicate that you
you
want to
can,
change.
well, I think you make a motion, I believe, to recall the matter.
Yep.
And if that's
Okay.
something you would like to do,
Yes, the previous matter on the West Brighton Fire Protection District. I just, as a protest vote more than anything, I'd like to say no.
well, make the motion first.
Right, so make a motion to recall the matter.
I'd like to make a motion to recall the matter on authorizing the supervisor to execute a renewal agreement with Penflex, Inc. for third-party administrative services for the West Brighton Fire Protection District Service Awards Program.
Resolution number 8.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Would you ask?
The first vote then would be to recall.
That's
that.
correct.
Dan, please call the roll on recalling.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye, and now, please, do we need to make the motion all over, just to recall?
Right,
and-
so the
and
motion,
take
the
everybody's-
motion has been made to recall the matter that is currently now back under discussion is resolution number 8 regarding retaining Penflex to continue to administer the West Brighton Fire Department's Service Award Program.
And do we need a new motion, or would we
Nope.
simply vote again on the existing motion?
Open for discussion at the moment?
Good. Thank you. Well, would anyone like to discuss this matter further?
Yes, this matter has been going on for how many years now?
Going on for 5 years.
Well, let me just.
The
step-
litigation.
Not the litigation, but the,
Yeah,
but
let me just step in. So, what I can say is there is still pending litigation between the town of Brighton and the West Brighton Fire Department. It would not be appropriate to discuss the status
Correct.
of that litigation or the strategies or the length of time. Really, nothing about the litigation should be discussed here in open session. I'd be happy to fill you in on as much as possible in executive session if you wish.
As we have done throughout the
but-
course of the litigation.
If what you're asking is how long has PenFlex been managing that service award program? I don't know, Suzanne, you have that information? How long has PenFlex been managing the service award program?
Not at my fingertips, but I might be able to look that up.
But it's been long, I believe they were managing that service award program prior to the litigation.
Yes, definitely. I think about 2004.
Right. So they've been managing that service award program, this company, for probably 13 or 14 years, something like that. And what the services, and maybe you can help me with this, Suzanne, the services that are provided involved, for some period of time, calculating distributions and accrual of award benefits, but also provide advice on investment of those funds and retaining those funds, I believe.
Well, we actually have another third party that does the investing,
The actual investing is.
The actual investing.
Yeah.
correct? But they do assist with who we use for that,
Right,
recommend, I should say.
right.
It's
And,
recommendation, but they also, I mean, there's current participants, past participants that are receiving a benefit right now, so they administer that.
okay.
And we have a fiduciary obligation to manage that, which we have chosen to exercise through the use of
Right.
PenFlex.
And the program itself is still an existing program, and you said that members of the West Brighton Fire Department who may have retired, for example, are receiving benefits through currently.
Correct.
Those that have earned benefits from the past, right?
Right,
Nobody's
so-
earning anything new.
Right, nobody's earning anything new, but so benefits which have been previously earned, which have to be paid out of that benefit fund, need to be managed and distributed and calculated by somebody, and that's the company that we use. So I hope that helps.
So is there any further discussion on that matter?
Bill, to the extent we still have this program, the service awards program in place, we're obligated to administer it.
Correct.
And I know
We have a
I know no
fiduciary
one
obligation, which is
better
a
to do
high...
so than PenFlex, who's done an excellent job in the past.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please again call the roll on this matter.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
No.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And last item is the appointment of a particular person. I'm looking here, Pamela
Delaney.
Pamela Delaney to the Planning Board to fill the remainder of a term that runs through December 31, 2022. Can I?
If I may, and my note-taking may be sloppy, and I apologize for delaying you on this last resolution, but I did not see that we had a second and a vote on resolution number 11. Do you have those notes, Mr. Amon? You do? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just wanted to make sure.
We
we had
did.
a-
We did indeed. So this will fill a vacancy through December 31st, 2022. Can I have a motion to appoint Pamela to fill that vacancy?
Bill, I move that we appoint Pamela Delaney to fill the position on the Planning Board effective immediately through December 31, 2022. Fortunately, I don't see a resolution before.
But that's sufficient to fill that.
There actually is, there is a resolution that was circulated. It should be
Yes, there
resolution
was,
number
and
12.
it doesn't seem to have gotten into the.
Gotten into the electronic.
Second that motion.
Thank you.
But either way, that's the entire substance of the
We did
motion.
interview,
I
we
have
did
it, Mr.
interview
Eamonn
her, and,
We did.
so Dan, please call the roll on that appointment. We have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Vogel? Aye. Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Matters of the supervisor, we have the expense and revenue for the month ending September 30th, and as always, when we get to the end of the quarter, we have a more extensive report from our finance director, Suzanne. Take it away.
Thank you. As I've been reporting out the past couple quarters on the 2017 operating budget, my report reviews our operating funds, which is the general fund, the highway fund, and our library funds. Our total operating budget for 2017 is $24,634,970. Of that, it's balanced by our revenues of the tax levy of $14,725,165. We've anticipated appropriating fund balance of $1,180,000. And then all our other revenue sources, which I'll discuss in a minute, totaled $8,729,805. Of those revenue sources, about 50% of them is made up of the other revenue sources outside of the tax levy, is made up of mortgage tax and sales tax. We've received, let's see, our first quarter sales tax check, which we received in May, so I did report out on last quarter, was $884,000, just over $884,000. And we received our second quarterly sales tax check in August of $830,000. Both of those were the highest we ever received for those respective quarters. And we were anticipating, though, in the 2017 budget, some additional, an increase in that revenue source. So of what we budgeted for 2017 so far, we've received 49% of it. But the last two quarters of the year historically are a little higher than the first two, so we anticipate receiving 100% of that revenue estimate for 2017. Our mortgage tax, we receive that twice a year. We've only received the one payment so far this year of $450,825, which was about 51% of our anticipated budget estimate for 2017. Again, the second payment of mortgage tax in the year covers the spring, summer months and is usually higher, so we anticipate receiving 100% of our budget estimate for mortgage tax. The remaining $4.3 million in budgeted revenues is made up of items such as state aid, pilots, interest income, other departmental income, and we've received 78% of that so far after 3 quarters of the year. So that is looking on track. With regards to our expenditures, of the $24.6 million, about 75% of that is made up of wages and benefits. In our wages, we only pay out what we've budgeted for, unless there is some kind of budget amendment throughout the year. But so we're right on track with our wages. Overtime, as I always state, is the one that can fluctuate a bit. We haven't had a lot of overtime so far since my report at the end of June, but we've spent out 53% of our overtime budget. As we come into the leaf and snow season, we may be using a little bit more of that, but barring any major snowstorms, we should be on track with our overtime. Employee benefits for active and retired employees is budgeted at $6.2 million, and we've spent, I should say almost 50% of that relates to medical and dental premiums. And so far, we've paid 10 months, or 83% of the year's worth of medical and dental premiums, and we've spent out 77% of the budget. So we've got a little wiggle room there, a little extra. And another $2 million is for employee benefits for the New York State retirement system. We've only made the first quarter payment because we don't get billed for the last 3 quarters of the year until December time. And that first quarter's payments was 24% of our budget. And I do have a preliminary bill for this December. We should have a little bit of savings in that line item also for 2017. The balance of our expenditures of $6.1 million, we've spent 67% of it so far after 3 quarters of the year, and it's broken out between our supplies and contractual expenses of $3,900,000, and we've spent $3,200,000 of that so far, or encumbered it, which is on track where we are every year at this time. Our insurance premiums for our commercial insurance is budgeted at $373,000. We've paid out our premiums for the year. Sometimes there might be a few other minor bills that will come in for new equipment that we put on the road, but we've spent 93% of that budget, so it looks like we may have about $27,000 remaining on that budget line at year end. Our equipment budget for 2017 was, with amendments, $758,000. We've spent out 58% of that, or $437,000. I think a big chunk of difference there is we had anticipated purchasing a backhoe and a trade-in program that went away this year, and so we had $100,000 in there that we won't be spending towards that on that equipment line. Our utilities were budgeted for all our buildings, our municipal buildings, as we were talking about earlier. Also, in addition to that, it includes townwide streetlights and special districts. The budget is $397,000, and through August that we had the bills through, we've spent 64% of it, which is a little less than 8 months' worth of the year. And the balance of our expenditures are for debt service, and which is $889,000 for the year, and we'll spend, get billed for every penny of that. So as we near the end of the year, the last couple of months, I think we're looking really good on both expenses and revenues, and not anticipating any, major budget actions that we'll have to take.
Thank you, Suzanne. I mean, that's the real important takeaway. Revenues are coming in ahead of budget, and expenses you've been able to keep through the, oversight that your office engages in under our budgeted estimates. So that's, again, the formula for continued fiscal stability and making sure that we stay well within and, in fact, ahead of our budget for 2017. So I want to thank you for that report. Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you again, Suzanne. Additional items of matters of the supervisor, and I may be stealing Dan's thunder, but this is the last town board meeting before Election Day, November 7th, and I do want to encourage everybody to vote, and I want to remind everybody to turn their ballot over, that there are ballot propositions on the back side, on the reverse of the ballot. But the polls will be open from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. All of our usual Brighton polling places will be used. Dan, are there any changes for this election? But if you do have any questions, either leading up to Election Day or on Election Day, you can call the Board of Elections at 753-1550. That's 753-1550. The Monroe County Board of Elections. Also coming up is our semi-annual West Brighton Community Forum on November 2nd. That will be at 7 p.m. at Rustic Village in their entertainment center. It's always a great opportunity. We bring our senior staff and town board, and it's an opportunity to answer questions, but also engage in really an open house setting for residents. That same night, November 2nd, is also a public meeting held by the State Department of Transportation on the proposed East Avenue pavement diet project. That's a project that is primarily within the towns of Pittsford and Brighton. I don't know if it gets into the city at all at the can of worms, but it's basically in Pittsford and Brighton. It will be turning East Avenue, State Route 96, from basically the can of worms area out, I believe, to the St. John Fisher area where Fairport Road and East Avenue split off. East Avenue will become a 3-lane road with one travel lane in each direction and a center left turn lane. It will have wider shoulders that will make it much more bicycle friendly and open up the possibility for continued completion of sidewalks in Pittsford and perhaps at some point here in Brighton as well.
It's sort of
based
needed
on-
repavement as well.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what it's.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I know there's been some discussion about it. This is actually a pavement diet that back in 2013, the town of Brighton Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan identified East Avenue as a major arterial in town that where traffic volumes were low enough that they do warrant a pavement diet. The stretch of East Avenue from Elmwood Avenue and 441 up to the Can of Worms has about 9,000 cars a day. That sounds like a lot, but it's actually less than 5 cars per minute, which is a very light volume, and if you break it out in the 4 lanes, it's barely over 1 car per lane per minute. That is clearly a low enough volume to warrant the reduction to 2 lanes. You know, on occasion, I know when traffic gets busy on 490, some folks detour onto East Avenue, but there will you know, continue to be, in my judgment, and certainly in the judgment of the professionals and community volunteers involved in our bicycle pedestrian plan and the professionals of the State Department of Transportation believe that a pavement diet will make the East Avenue corridor better used not only by vehicles but also by active transportation. So, but that meeting is on November 2nd at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6, 5 to 7 or so, and that is going to be held at
Allen's Creek
Elms
Elementary.
Creek School. And I do encourage people
5 to 7:30.
5 to 7:30. It's going to be an open house format. It'll be an opportunity. It's not going to be an opportunity for people to, you know, pound the table and speak. It's going to be a learning opportunity. The DOT will be there. They'll have data. They'll have designs, a lot of information, but they'll be listening, I hope, to, you know, community input about the project. The goal being to make sure that the project is implemented as effectively as possible next year. So we have that. November 2nd is going to be a busy day. Sooner than that, starting tomorrow, is the regular Friends of the Library used book sale. Tomorrow, Thursday, is for friends only, members of the Friends of the Brighton Memorial Library, but don't despair. You can join on the spot. Walk right in, make a contribution to the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library, help the library, and the Friends do a great job of that, and shop their amazing book sale. I never go to the book sale without finding some good reads. So, but that will continue through October 30th. I would also note that the library has their Book Sandwiched In program, an opportunity every month to hear sometimes the author, sometimes someone else talk about a new book. You guessed it, November 2nd, which is going to be a very busy Thursday. At noon will be the next book sandwiched in. The book is going to be The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane, about the Chinese tea culture is the setting for the book. And the speaker, the presenter, will be Niraj Lama, who owns Happy Earth Tea. So that's at noon that day. And finally, Historic Brighton, which is another great group. You know, we've got all these wonderful organizations in town. I'm really intrigued by this one. A gentleman named Michael Lasser, who is going to be, the topic of his discussion is Hearing America Change, the Songs of World War I. And he's going to chronicle how popular music during the war and before America's entry into the war changed over time. And I've always found fascinating the interrelation between pop music and the issues of the day. Growing up in the 60s, I certainly had my ear on the radio and heard all of the music changing from the Battle of the Green Beret to great classic anti-war songs like For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield. And I think we're going to be in for the same kind of discussion of how pop music changed during World War I. So that's Sunday, the 29th, 2:30 right here in Town Hall. So those are the matters that I wanted to mention. I wanted to thank, finally, everybody involved in approving the budget tonight. I am especially pleased that the Brighton general fund tax levy will be going down in 2018. I think that is important work, and it's important work that only comes because of the efforts not just of the town board, but our finance staff, particularly Roger Salmons, our budget director, Suzanne Zaso, our finance director, and the volunteer groups that have helped us with that budget process. So that's all I have for matters of the supervisor. Matters of the attorney.
I have nothing, thank you.
Matters of the clerk.
Nothing for me?
Matters of the town board.
Yes, Suzanne, could you help me one more time? What is our current, going forward, debt service obligation?
Total outstanding
Yeah.
right now? Let me pull it up
The
here.
principal amount of our outstanding debt.
Right, yes.
While Suzanne's getting that number, I would note that that number is significantly less than the communities we think of as,
Yes.
sometimes in reviewing financial affairs anyway, as peers, Penfield, Pittsford, Parrington. The number that Suzanne will be giving you of the principal amount of our debt outstanding is significantly less than each of those three communities.
It's actually in the budget book, if anybody were to
Yeah.
look through there. But as of when we presented the budget on September 27th, our outstanding balance was $6,168,681.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Any other matters of the town board? I do. One other event that I really want to make note of, and that is our Veterans Day event. We will be, as we have each year since our majestic Brighton Veterans Memorial was dedicated 5 years ago, we have held a Veterans Day observance at the Brighton Veterans Memorial. And this year, because we are honoring the 5th anniversary of the completion of the memorial, thanks in large part to Jim Vogel, who chaired the Veterans Memorial Committee, and that great team of people you work with. We will be holding our ceremony this year on November 10th, on Friday, which is the observed holiday date. We will be doing it at 1 o'clock out at the Veterans Memorial. And as part of that ceremony, we will be honoring an organization whose service to veterans has really been something special. And anybody who has ever been to the homecoming of an honor flight knows that little piece, and honor flight is a much, much bigger, more significant engagement for the veterans who have the chance to go. But we will be honoring honor flight at that ceremony, 1 o'clock on November 10th, and the entire community is invited. I know we're going to have the leadership of honor flight, as well as many, many veterans that have had the opportunity to go. Jason, I know you accompanied your father on honor flight.
September of 2015, yes.
I was there when your contingent came back.
Great experience,
Wow.
a wonderful organization, everything they do for veterans, absolutely.
Great. So any other matters of the board? Hearing none, can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters relating to collective bargaining?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Malley?
I want to thank everybody that was here tonight, especially our Brighton High School students. Thanks for sticking it out. And our next meeting of the Brighton Town Board will be November 8th, right here at 7 p.m. Have a great evening. I do not anticipate that we'll be coming back out into open session after the executive session. So